Hello and welcome back to my channel. Today we are making homemade fettuccine. We don't need to be using a machine. We are doing this all by hand and we are using a rolling pin. This is a recipe that will impress. So we start with 400 grams of flour and 4 eggs. We make a well in the flour, pouring the flour on the counter as you can see in the video. And making a well, we crack our eggs into the center of the well and we get a fork and start whisking the eggs into the flour gently so as not to let the eggs run out. We're slowly incorporating. And what we're doing is we're going to create a dough. And once we do that, we're going to start kneading this dough. So we're just incorporating all the eggs with the flour. We're not adding any additional flour here. We're just using 400 grams and 4 eggs for the time being. Additional flour we'll add later on when we're rolling out the dough. Right now we're just kneading the dough and we're working it on a counter, so we are incorporating all of it into one nice smooth round dough ball. So we're just going to continue working and working and working as it gets less sticky. And this is going to take about 10 minutes of kneading. We have to work it for at least 10 minutes because if we don't, the eggs and the flour are not going to incorporate well together. And your pasta is not going to come out right. So we have to knead this properly to really work the dough. And because we're doing it by hand, it's taking a little longer, but that's okay. Because once you get the hang of it, it's a piece of cake, no problem. So we're now here at the end, and you can tell that the texture is smooth, and that's what you want. You don't want any lumps. So now we're going to split this into 2. So when we're rolling it out, it's easier. Smaller portions of dough are easier to roll out by hand. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to cut the dough into 2 pieces here. We're going to create a circular shape, and then we're going to wrap it in saran wrap, clear plastic wrap, and that is a must so it doesn't dry out. So as you can see, I'm using my knuckles and I'm using the base of my hands to work the dough. So now we're going to let it rest in clear wrap for 20 to 30 minutes. Now we're getting our baking trays ready. Because once we roll out the dough and we cut our fettuccine pasta out of the dough, we're going to lay it on the baking tray lined with parchment paper. We're going to lay it on that tray to dry out for about an hour, hour and a half. So right now, we're just pushing the dough out with our fingers to get a head start on rolling it. So we're trying to expand the dough as much as we can before we start rolling it. This will make it easier when we start rolling it. And we always want to keep a circular shape. So now we flour our rolling pin and we just go up and down, and we turn the dough. We just keep turning the dough, and we're applying pressure, rolling up and down. We're applying as much pressure as we can, always keeping a circular shape to the dough. And we're thinning it out as much as possible before we start working the rolling pin by rolling the dough around the rolling pin. And we're almost at that point now. So now we're going to wrap the dough around the rolling pin. We have to be careful not to tear the dough. So I'm taking my rings off, but we have to be careful. And then we're going to just roll back and forth, applying a lot of pressure, as much as we can. And then we turn the dough because we want to keep the circular shape. And we're holding the rolling pin on the ends at this point. And as you can see, it's getting thinner and thinner, and it's getting bigger and bigger. And that's what we want. So now we're starting to roll out the dough. So we roll and stretch, and we're holding the rolling pin from the center and sliding our hands back and forth, inward and outward, and that's stretching the dough. What it's doing is it's stretching the dough. And if you notice, it's getting bigger and it's getting thinner, and we want to get to the point where that dough reaches the ends of the rolling pin. So we just keep stretching and turning, stretching and turning. Carefully, we're applying pressure, but carefully not to tear the dough. And see, already it's so much bigger in just a few minutes. So we keep rolling and pulling at the same time. We're rolling and pulling at the same time. And we're almost there. We're almost at the end of the rolling pin. So we just roll out the edges because the edges are always a bit thicker. And we want to roll those out. And if there's any tears, it's okay. You can patch it up with your fingers. So again, we're stretching out, rolling and stretching, always adding flour to the dough and the rolling pin to keep it from sticking. So there's a tear there. I'm just patching it up, but that's no problem. That's okay. So see how large this disc has become? It's just really, really different than it was a few minutes ago. You want to get to the point where it's almost transparent, and you put your hand underneath it. You can almost see your hand. So we're stretching and rolling, stretching and rolling, stretching and rolling, always adding flour. And we're going to iron out all the wrinkles as much as we can with the rolling pin. See how thin this sheet has become. Just a couple more times and we're done. Just ironing out the edges to create as thin a dough as possible without tearing it. So now we're going to rest it on the rolling pin for about 5 minutes or so to dry it out. And then we're going to roll it so we can cut it. So now here we're rolling it on one side, going to the center, and then we're going to roll from the other side, going to the center, just like this. And we're going to get a cutting board, flour cutting board, and a sharp knife. We're going to cut out the first piece, the edge, to make a smooth, straight edge, and we're going to cut in about 1/4 inch strips. So now we're going to open up the fettuccine pasta because we don't want it to be stuck. Shake out the excess flour and we're going to put it on our baking tray. And on the baking tray, it's going to dry for about 1.5 hours to 2 hours before we cook it in our boiling water and add it to our beautiful tomato sauce. So this is only one of the pieces of wrapped dough. The other disc I'm going to be doing but not filming because it's the same, it's all the same steps. So now we've got our pasta, both discs, one on one baking tray and one on the other. And now we're drying it with flour, abundant flour so it doesn't stick. And 1.5 hours later, we've got our water boiling and we've got our tomato sauce that I've cooked. I'll add the tomato sauce in another video, the making of the tomato sauce. But now we're gonna, when the water is boiling, we're abundantly adding salt, about 1.5 tablespoons. And then we're gonna add our pasta all at once. So we stir the pasta carefully not to tear it, but we don't want it to stick. So we've got to, with our tongs, we've got to continuously stir it. And this is about 5 to 6 minutes cooking time. And then we'll transfer it to our pot with our tomato sauce. And there you go. There's your finished product. And if you've got guests, you can be sure that you are going to impress them with this dish. Thank you so much for watching and enjoy.